All right, let's get right into it. The book is called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And what's wild is that this is an insider's account of a secret government UFO program that was actually cleared for release by the Department of Defense. But to really get what this program was all about, we can't start in some sterile Pentagon briefing room. Nope. We have to start on a dark, dusty trail in the middle of Utah with a team of military pros who are about to have the absolute worst night of their lives.
So our story begins right here, at the infamous Skinwalker Ranch, a team led by a naval intelligence engineer named Jonathan Axelrod. This is a serious guy. He investigated the Tic Tac UFO case, was invited out to the property. Now you have to understand, these are not people who scare easily. We're talking warriors, experts in sensor technology, guys who are just as comfortable in the field as they are in the Pentagon. They were there to do a job, to apply their skills to track a mysterious presence. They had absolutely no idea what they were walking into.
So imagine this. They're walking under the stars, it's a warm July night, and then, boom, something impossible happens. The temperature just plummets. It was literally like walking into a freezer. So they step back, and it's warm again. They step forward, and it's ice cold. The bizarre thing is, they described it as a stationary, invisible wall of cold. There was no wind, no weather front. It was just there.
And that's when the feeling started. You know, that primal feeling. It began as this growing anxiety that just escalated into pure mortal terror. One of the team members, Jim Costigan, he flips up his night vision scope and he sees the source. About 50 yards ahead, totally invisible to the naked eye, was this black oval shape, 8 feet tall. He said it was just radiating this menacing presence, like all the light and life around it were being sucked right into it.
Every single instinct these men had. And remember, these are instincts honed on battlefields in Iraq and Afghanistan. Every instinct was screaming that if they took one more step forward, they would die. So they did what any sane person would do. They got out of there. They retreated. And the fear started to subside the further they got from that thing. They made it back to the command center, completely shaken. But here's the kicker, and this is the most important part. What they met on that ranch, it didn't stay on the ranch. It was about to follow them 2,000 miles home.
This is what they came to call the hitchhiker effect. Jonathan Axelrod goes back home to his family in Virginia, and his house turns into what he called a paranormal Disneyland. His wife sees a tall black humanoid figure in their bedroom. His teenage son is terrified by these glowing blue orbs just flying around his room. And then, and this is just beyond strange, multiple family members at different times saw a 7-foot-tall wolf-like creature standing on 2 legs in their suburban backyard. It's like something had literally latched onto him. Which brings us right to the central question here. Because this isn't just some ghost story, right? These were government consultants on an official visit. So what kind of secret government program is sending its people to a place like this, a place that can apparently follow you home and haunt you?
Well, this wasn't some rogue, off-the-books operation. This was an official, fully funded Pentagon program. And it had a very specific and, until now, very secret purpose. And really, what this is all about is correcting the public record on what that program truly was. So, just how seriously did the Pentagon take this stuff? Well, they put $22 million behind it. Now, let's be clear. In the world of government spending, that's not just some side project. That was a significant, targeted investment into, well, into the unknown. The program's real name was AAWSAP. That stands for the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications Program. It was run by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, from 2008 to 2010. And its official mission was to evaluate the threat posed by UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, and, this is the crucial part, and related phenomena. Okay, so this right here is where years of confusion have come from. You've probably heard of AATIP, right? That's the name that got famous from that 2017 New York Times article. But AATIP was a later, much smaller, informal effort. The real $22 million program was AAWSAP, and its scope was way, way broader. It was designed from the very beginning to include the paranormal side of the whole UAP equation. So you have to wonder, how does a program this weird even get started at the Pentagon? Well, the origin story is just incredible. It involves a book, an aerospace billionaire, and the most powerful man in the U.S. Senate. It all kicks off with this guy, Dr. James Lakatsky. He's a physicist and an intelligence officer at the DIA. In 2007, he picks up this book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, which details the scientific investigation of the ranch. And it alarmed him. He thought, what if something technological is operating completely undetected in U.S. airspace? And he decided he had to do something about it.
So Likotsky actually writes an official letter to the ranch's owner, the aerospace billionaire Robert Bigelow, and he arranges a visit. And get this, within an hour of setting foot on the property, Likotsky himself has a sighting. And we're not talking about some blurry light in the sky here. He saw a complex, technological object materialize and then vanish just a few feet away from him, inside a building, in broad daylight. For him, that was it. This was real.
What's just stunning is how quickly this all came together. After his experience, Likotsky teams up with Bigelow. They go straight to Bigelow's friend, who just so happened to be Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. Reid then pulls in two other powerful senators, Ted Stevens and Daniel Inouye. And at this critical moment, Senator Stevens actually recounted his own UAP sighting as a pilot back in World War II. And with that, in a super rare bipartisan move, they secured $22 million in dark money. And by 2008, AAWSAP was officially born.
But what was this program really studying? Because the documents the public could see told one story, but the actual contract, that revealed a much, much stranger mission. The real goal went way beyond just tracking weird things in the sky.
So, on paper, the official government request for proposals looked very technical, very conventional. It asked for studies on things like propulsion, power generation, signature reduction, all standard aerospace engineering stuff. It was basically designed to sound kind of boring.
But behind that very conventional cover, the winning proposal from Robert Bigelow's company, BAASS, laid out the real mission. It flat out proposed using Skinwalker Ranch as a living laboratory. It called for investigating a consciousness connection, studying the biological effects on humans, like the hitchhiker effect, and even implementing a remote viewing or psychic spying program. So the main takeaway here is that from its very inception, this was a paranormal research program.
So the program ran for just over 2 years before its funding got cut. But in that short time, it produced a massive amount of research, which leads to the obvious question: what happened to all of it?
The world first got a version of this story on December 16, 2017. That New York Times front page article was a complete bombshell. It legitimized the whole UAP topic overnight. It really started the conversation that we're still having today. But, as we've seen, it also got some key facts wrong by mixing up AAWSAP and AATIP.
So, in its very short existence, the AAWSAP program produced a staggering amount of work. All that research, all those field investigations, it all resulted in 109 individual reports and databases.
And those 109 products, the entire output of this $22 million program, are still just sitting there unreleased at the Defense Intelligence Agency. And we're not just talking about field notes. These are formal defense intelligence reference documents covering everything from advanced propulsion to the human and paranormal effects we've been talking about. The data is still there.
Senator Harry Reid, the man who made this whole thing happen, has since said pretty plainly, the American people can handle the truth. He believes that what the government learned should be made public as long as it doesn't harm national security.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? We've seen the chilling personal stories, the high-level political maneuvering, and the secret paranormal core of a very real Pentagon program. So, if they spent all that time and all that money officially investigating this link between advanced craft, consciousness, and just pure high strangeness, what in the world did they find out?